Hey everyone, welcome. So, if you've ever built a digital product, you've probably felt that growing pain, right? Where things get messy and inconsistent as your product gets bigger. Well, today we're going to tackle that problem head on. My goal is that by the time we're done here, you'll have a solid mental model for systematic design. And look, this is a course feel. It's what lets you build UIs that are scalable, consistent, and actually maintainable. This isn't just some passing trend, you guys. It's a fundamental strategy for solving real product problems when you're working at scale.
For the longest time, the way we designed was page by page. But this quote right here just nails it. That page metaphor is a relic. It's a holdover from when the web was just, a bunch of documents. It just can't keep up with the super fluid, multi-device world we're all building for now. And this old way of doing things, it doesn't just slow us down, it actively creates chaos. So let's really dig into what that chaos looks like, and then we'll introduce the mental model that's designed to fix it all.
Okay, so here's the game plan for today. First, we're going to really understand the problem, that big shift from pages to systems. Then we'll dive into the core theory, which is atomic design. After that, we'll see it in action, breaking down how the big guys like IBM and Google pull it off. Then we'll get practical, looking at your workflow and tools. And finally, we'll wrap it all up by talking about why this matters so much for you and the products you build.
All right, let's jump right in. Section 1. We're going to dig into the huge shift that's behind this whole conversation, moving away from those one-off, handcrafted designs and toward a much more, industrial and systematic way of building UIs.
So here's the best way to think about it. The old way, it's like you're running a custom hot rod shop. Every single car is built from scratch. Yeah, it's artistic for sure, but it is wildly inefficient and, you're guaranteed to get inconsistencies. But the new way, now that's like having a perfectly organized Lego set. You've got this awesome library of well-made, reusable pieces, and you can combine them in a million different ways to build literally anything you want. And you can do it way faster and with perfect consistency every single time.
This table really just lays it all out, doesn't it? I mean, look at that output row. We're moving away from these terrifying, high-risk, all-or-nothing redesigns, the kind where one big launch can either save the company or sink it, and we're moving into a world of low-risk, small, incremental updates. And check out the workflow change. From that classic linear, throw-it-over-the-wall handoff between design and dev to real, actual iterative collaboration. This is huge. It's not just a tweak to the process, it's a massive cultural and operational shift for how teams build products.
Okay, so how do we actually bring some order to all this chaos? Well, the most powerful solution out there comes from a guy named Brad Frost. It's a methodology called atomic design. And to really get it, we're going to have to go back to high school chemistry. Yeah, you heard me right, chemistry.
So atomic design gives us this super clear 5-stage hierarchy. You can see how it builds on itself, right? It goes from these tiny abstract pieces all the way up to the final concrete thing a user sees. For now, we're going to really focus on the first 3 stages, the atoms, molecules, and organisms, because honestly, that's the heart of your component library. That's the core of the whole system.
Okay, so let's start at the very bottom with atoms. Think of these as the absolute fundamental building blocks of your interface. You can't break them down any further. We're talking about things like a specific brand color, font style, an icon. By themselves, they don't do much, right? They're kind of abstract. But they are the visual DNA of your entire system. If you get your atoms right, everything you build on top of them will inherit that consistency automatically. It's that important.
Next up, we start combining our atoms to make molecules. And this is where things start to get useful, where they become functional. The example here is perfect. You take a label atom, an input field atom, and a button atom, and you bond them together. What do you get? A search form molecule. It's a simple, reusable little component that has one clear job. It does one thing, and it does that one thing really well.
All right, now we take our molecules, and maybe some atoms too, and we assemble them into organisms. These are the bigger, more complex parts of your interface. Think of a site header. That's a classic organism, right? It's got a logo, some navigation links, maybe that search form molecule we just talked about. Or another fantastic example is a product grid on an e-commerce site. That whole grid is an organism, and it's made by just repeating one product card molecule over and over again. These are the big, portable chunks of your UI library.
Okay, this quote from Brad Frost is absolutely crucial, so let's pause on it. He says atomic design is not a linear process. You don't just do step 1, then step 2,
Then step 3, it's a mental model. It's a new way to think. It gives you this superpower to zoom way in on the tiny details of a single button, and then, in the same breath, zoom way out to see how that button fits into the entire page. You can see the whole and the parts all at once, and you understand how changing one tiny thing can ripple through the entire system.
So look, this isn't just some abstract theory, right? This is how the biggest tech companies on the planet actually work. So for this next section, let's go behind the scenes and deconstruct how these giants use systematic design to manage their insanely complex products.
I love this table because it shows you that there's no one-size-fits-all solution. Every company tailors its design system principles to its specific business goals. Take Salesforce. They're all about efficiency. And it makes perfect sense, right? Their users are in these super complex enterprise workflows all day long. Now contrast that with Apple. They value deference. What does that mean? It means the UI needs to shut up and get out of the way of the content in the beautiful hardware. The key takeaway here is that a design system is a strategic business tool, not just a collection of pretty buttons.
Let's zoom in on one of these, IBM's Carbon. It's built for really data-heavy apps, and because their users are trying to make sense of all this complex info, things like top-notch accessibility and super clear interaction states, well, they aren't just nice-to-haves. They're absolutely critical for the product to even be usable. They do this by tokenizing everything, every color, every state. That just means they give it a name, a single source of truth. So they get total consistency across literally hundreds of different products. This right here is what systems thinking looks like at a massive enterprise scale.
Okay, so we've got the theory down, we've seen how the pros do it out in the wild. Now for what is probably the most important part, how do you actually apply this in your day-to-day work? Well, I've got great news. The tools you're probably already using, especially Figma, they weren't just made to be compatible with this way of working, they were literally built for it.
So let's just break down Figma's toolkit. You'll see it maps perfectly to our atomic model. Your styles and variables, those are your atoms. They create that single source of truth for all your colors, your fonts, your spacing. You will never have to guess a hex code again. Your components, those are your molecules. You build it once and then you can reuse it everywhere as an instance. Variants are amazing. They let you define all the different states of a component, like hover or disabled, all in one neat little package. No more making a dozen different buttons. And finally, auto layout. That's the magic engine that lets you build your molecules and organisms to be responsive so they stretch and adapt just like they would in real code.
So here it is, laid out plain and simple. On the left, the atomic principle. On the right, the exact Figma feature that makes it happen. Your atoms, those are your styles and variables. Your molecules, those are your components with variants. In your organisms, you build those with nested components and auto layout. See, it's a perfect one-to-one mapping. Okay, but listen up, because this is a really important piece of advice. A design system is not just a technical file, it's a tool for people to communicate. And this quote gets to the heart of it. One of the hardest parts is not the tech, it's agreeing on what to call things. I mean, is it a utility bar or an admin nav? Getting everyone, designers, developers, product managers, to use the same name for the same component, that is a game changer. It gets rid of so much confusion. That shared language is really the glue that holds the whole system and the team together.
All right, let's bring it all home. Let's talk about the big so what. I mean, why go through all this trouble? What's the real payoff? Let's get into the tangible impact this way of working has on you, your team, and yeah, even the bottom line of your product.
So the payoff is huge, and it really comes down to 3 things. First, you get consistency. Every single button, every form, every header looks and behaves exactly the same. That creates a cohesive experience, and that builds trust with your users. Second, you get a massive boost in efficiency. Your teams are building with pre-approved Legos, not reinventing the wheel every single time. And you know what that means? You ship features way, way faster. And finally, scalability. This is the big one. Let's say you need to update your main brand color. You change it in one place, one atom, and boom, it updates everywhere, instantly. Now that is a foundation that can grow and change without the whole thing collapsing on itself.
So I want to leave you with a practical first step you can take, like today. Thinking in systems doesn't mean you have to burn everything down and start over. It can start really small. So look at whatever project you're working on right now and just ask yourself this one question. What is the very first atom I could define? Seriously, just one. Maybe it's your primary brand color, or the main body font style, or even just a single spacing value. By defining just that one little thing, you're laying the very first brick. You're making that first crucial step away from building pages and toward building powerful, lasting systems.